Hey guys, so this is for the Jinxed Food Porn channel on Discord, and I'm just like making a YouTube video because it's easier, and I'll probably chop it up and see what I can do to make this easier, but for now I'm going to just like kind of post short videos, and then I'm gonna go through the cooking process, and we'll just make some shit. Let's do it. All right, so basic sandwich bread. Super easy. Really not that hard to do. I have a couple of my own twists on it, and I will show you what I do for my white bread. It has a soft crust, and it has just a really nice flavor, a bit of sweetness to it, not really salty. It holds together really well, so you can cut it thin. So if you don't like a lot of bread, like on your grilled cheese or something like that, you can cut it really thin, still butter it, and it just sticks together, and it's amazing. So it's a buttermilk and a white bread with some honey in it. You can exchange this out for wheat flour instead of all-purpose flour, but you want to have a mixture of it. Reason being is that different flours have different gluten content, and it specifically also differs from state to state depending on where they get their grain from. So, for instance, Montana flour has a high-ass gluten content, so I usually end up using a lot less flour than something like in, I don't know, California. Elevation and everything like that too. Same with Colorado, is a little bit different. So that takes into effect barometric pressure, just everything. So you really want to just take into account all the factors while you're making bread, and realize that if you're making it in one specific part of the world, it might be a little bit different than if you're making it where I'm at. So without further ado, I'll try to set this up a little bit. Let's see. Will oil be my savior on this day? Nope. Sorry. I recently almost burned my house down with oil, so it's pretty great. Okay, I think that'll be fine. So, what I do is get my stuff ready and just kind of do that. I'm gonna need 2 bowls. So I've got these 2. One is going to be for my yeast and water mixture. The other is going to be for my dry mixture for my flour. That's going to make sure that things don't intermingle closely, and things won't get fucked up in the process. Let's shut this, because that's bright as shit. It's like I'm gonna be out and going to heaven or something like back there. Just like, here's the white light. Anyways, so first thing I'm gonna need is to get my yeast and water mixture ready first. Reason being why you do this is because you want your yeast to proof. You don't want it to immediately just go in the water, mix it up, and then throw it in. That'll fuck you up every time. You won't get a good proper rise out of it, and it's just more shit. So you want to take the time, and while you're making your dry mixture, you want your yeast to proof. And I'll show you what that looks like. So we're going to get 2 teaspoons of yeast and a cup of water, warm water, about room temperature, nothing too different. If it's too hot, it'll kill the yeast. If it's too cold, it'll retard the yeast. And I don't say retard like in a bad way, I mean it literally slows the yeast. So I'm using it in the literal sense. But anyways, let me get that ready. Just that. Alright, got that. My things. You might be noticing now that I'm using Tupperware stuff, and that's primarily because my girlfriend's mom conned me into selling it also, but I'm not trying to sell you Tupperware. I could care less. But if you guys want to buy some, I know a person. Anyways, moving on. Got my 1 teaspoon here. I just wash my mitts too. 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons. I'm going to add a cup of water to that. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that yeast is something that feeds off of sugar. And so, a way to make your yeast proof faster is by adding just a little bit of sugar. You know, about 1/8 of a cup, something like that. Just, or like a pinch. And it'll make your yeast proof so much faster. So you got that. Yeast, get like a fork or a spoon, it doesn't really matter. And what you want to do with this method is that you actually want to go down and raise up. So you're kind of scooping. You'll hear like this really gross slapping sound. And some of it may kick out. But what you're doing is you're essentially scraping the bottom and mixing the yeast and the sugar together to create this sort of homogeneous, sort of gross mixture. There's my thumb. And if you can see there, it's this light brown, little bubbly. And when we come back to it, it's going to be even more bubbly. It's going to be ridiculously... it's like a colony, because, I don't know, yeast is weird. I'll probably make it a sourdough down the line, and I'll show you what it is to make your own wild yeast. It consists of like rotting raisins and stuff like that, so it's pretty dope, actually. It's pretty dope. Then you keep it alive like a pet. So, moving on, what we're going to need for our flour is, well, our dough is flour, salt, sugar, honey, buttermilk, and butter. So let me get some of those ready. Buttermilk, butter, that, need some honey, and some salt. Bam-a-dam-a-ding-dong. Just regular table salt will work. If people are like, oh, you need to use rock salt, that's not technically true unless you're going for a garnish or a texture. Usually when you're using confection, such as making chocolates and treats of that nature, you would use a coarser salt because it provides another layer of texture, which entices the taste buds more. It's weird. I really don't do confection because I'm allergic to chocolate, but if I did, that is the reason why, is to add another layer of texture to it. So, in baking, regular table salt, just fine. There are instances in when you would use a different type of salt, such as in the next pastry I'm going to do, Queen Amman. It has a more added benefit to do gray flake sea salt because it's sweet. It's bizarre. So, anyways, back to the bread. We're going to do 5 cups of all-purpose flour. Oh, about 5 cups. A little bit over, not really a big deal. Want to be fairly precise and do this by weight. But if you have it measured out already to kind of what it's supposed to be, then it's not really as big of a deal. And technically in a 1.5 pound loaf pan that I would use, this would make 2 loaves. A 3 pound loaf pan, this would obviously just make 1 loaf. It's a little big, but it's going to work out just fine. So we got our flour in here. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt. Now, the one important thing that a lot of people make mistakes on when they first start baking is they'll add their salt to their yeast. Jesus, dear Lord, do not add your salt to your yeast. Salt is like the major component of things falling. It kills the yeast completely. You don't want to add salt to your yeast. It's just, bar none, terrible. Don't do it. So, got that going, and instead of 10 minutes, we have our flour and our sugar in there already, and a little bit of talking, and check that out. See those bubbles? See that colony forming on there? That means that your yeast is alive. That means it's ready to go. And so at any point now, when we add that yeast, it's going to give us the best amount of rise to it. It's just good to go. But we got to finish our dry mixture first. We're going to do a tablespoon of sugar. Okay. Teaspoon of salt, tablespoon of sugar. Tablespoon of honey. This adds sort of an acidic sweetness to it, which in the end ends up being kind of a nicer, smoother flavor. It's not nearly as, what's the word for it? It's not as bready. It kind of breaks it up a little bit. You get like this creamy sort of taste to it. It's a little bit strange to explain. It's not like your traditional creaminess, but if a bread could be smooth, that's what it would be. It's not like coarse, it's smooth. Okay, so that's done. Don't need that anymore. Now we're going to add a cup of buttermilk, specifically buttermilk. Reason being is because it has a really high cream content, 1, and 2, because it adds another layer of flavor, almost like a saltiness to it. And you can smell the buttermilk when you put it in. Like, it has this really strong flavor to it, as anyone who has drank like straight buttermilk would know. So technically, a lot of people say you have to mix up all this stuff beforehand. You really don't. Working in a bakery for as long as I did, it doesn't matter as long as it's quick. So now that we have that in there, we got to start going quick. So we're going to do 2 tablespoons of butter, broken. Just use your fingers and squeeze them into little nuggets. Okay, butter is done, buttermilk is done. We have our yeast mixture. Pour the yeast mixture in. And as soon as you pour the yeast mixture in, you are going to immediately start kneading with your hands. You are not going to rest in this part. You have to immediately start kneading with your hands. Because the salt is not mixed in cohesively with the flour, if you let it sit, it'll start to eat away at the yeast. So you have to immediately put it in. Giggity. So I'm just kind of picking it up and squishing it and breaking up all these nuggets of butter that are in here. And I'm just kind of making this into a cohesive ball. And I'm going to be taking this out in a second and tabling it. My table is clean, by the way. And I will show you the method of kneading that I use that has yielded some pretty dope results. So what you want to do is kind of like fold it in on itself, press it down, pick it up, fold it, press down, and what you're doing is you're forcing the wet parts of the dough to the outside to stick to the rest of the flour that's in the bowl. And by doing that, you are going to get more of a yield when you finish this, and there will be less waste. Ideally, what you want when you make bread and you make pastry is 0 waste and 100% yield. That means that when you're done kneading, your bowl is actually clean because you picked up all of the dough, and you have a full cohesive mixture, and everything is kosher. So, unfortunately, we did not get the dream today, but we have this sort of kind of wet, still floury lump of just dough. It's very loose and everything. And I'll show you what it kind of means to knead it. Is that you can't really pussyfoot around with it. You have to really go at it. You want to turn a quarter turn at a time, use the heel of your hand, push down, and you really want to get in there. And what you're looking for is a slightly tacky ball. So here we go, pushing all of this dough and the wetness to the outside of the dough. It's becoming a more cohesive mixture. And we're going to about get to that tacky stage, that slightly tacky stage. So what this is doing is it's actually building gluten. So if you've ever watched anything like Chinese noodle pulling, where they slap the noodles on the table, which I will probably do a video on at some point in time, you'll notice that you'll probably wonder why they slap it on the table, and it's to develop gluten. The more you beat up dough and the more you work it, the more gluten you have, which the tougher it's going to be. So if you want a soft dough, you want to be really careful and not work it as hard. But if you want a hard dough, work the shit out of it, and you will get a hard dough. So we're only going to do this for a couple minutes. It's not really super crucial that we get all the parts together right now. Like it doesn't have to be perfect at this point in time. We just want to get everything together, which we are currently achieving with great force and great swiftness. Okay, so now I have my dough. See how it's kind of roundish, but it has these lumps on top? So what I'm going to do is take my hands, like 2 claws. I'm going to put them on either side of this dough. So claws down. And I'm not even going to use my hands. I'm going to use my body mostly. My body or my arms. Keep my hands in one spot. And I'm just going to push the dough in a clockwise circle.
Oh, you're making good. I just gotta go pee.
And now we have a nice round shape, and this is going to smooth out as it rises. So if people are like, oh, this needs to be shiny and smooth, don't fucking believe them. It's not having to be smooth right away. It has to be together before the first rise. Okay, now we have our bowl, and it doesn't have to be perfect because this is just what we had in here, but we're just going to drop our dough in, and usually what you would do is you would actually butter this, not pan. I swear to God, I really hate people that use pan in this sort of things. Well, I don't hate them, but I just like it because it makes it taste oily, and it's not good. So I just let it sit, or I use butter, and I just loosely cover it with the lid. You can cover it with even just a towel, just drape it over top. It doesn't have to be sealed, just enough to keep the moisture in. So, what we did is we made the dough, made the yeast mixture, got this to where it's rising. It'll probably double in size. I'll post a second video later on showing how to check when it's proofed and properly proofed and when it's done. And yeah, I guess we'll just kind of go from there. Sorry for the 23-minute video, but I don't really know how to cut shit. I'm not a YouTuber, like, by any means, or a video maker, so my bad. But I'll try to make these a bit better and a bit shorter as time goes on. Anywho's, I will catch you guys later, and peace out.